Hello there, interwebs. I am the Bechtloff, and this is, of course, my podcast. And right before I went to record, I went to get myself a couple of drinks, snacks, quick little run over to the convenience mart down the street. And something occurred to me, and I've thought of it before, but thought of it especially today as I was behind these people. You remember when bikers were scary? Like I'm just old enough. I'm at the oldest of the millennials. Like, if I was really any older, I'd be getting into Gen X territory. So I'm just old enough to remember when bikers were scary. Instead, now they're just fat, sad old men. And I actually think I'd like to go to one of these pathetic little biker rallies that they got, these weekend warriors with their Harleys that still think they're all bad, and just kind of laugh at them all, because... man, it's just another example of how the boomers just refuse to age gracefully. Just refuse. Just stuck behind this guy, a fat ass with tattoos all over him that probably looked kind of cool before his skin got all saggy and wrinkly, and ponytail, but he's balding in the front, and just sad. Just sad. So, that was a quick little thought there. Anyways, I noticed another thing past week, dawned on me slowly. I don't collect comics anymore like I used to. I used to collect comics like mad, because I'm a big comic book fan. I used to read them. I'm not a collector primarily, I'm a reader, but when I would read something, I'd then put it away. Well, I don't do that anymore. Part of it is just my circumstances in life. I've had to move a couple of times in the last few years, more than I would have liked. And moving a storeroom full of comics is a pain in the ass. But the other part of it is, I run a store, and I hesitate to even call it a store, with a friend of mine. It's basically just 6 hours a day at an indoor flea market every Saturday. But I sell comics there, and by co-owning this, I feel like I co-own this ever-rotating collection. So I've donated, for lack of a better term, most of my comics to that store at this point for startup stock. And I'm probably going to whittle my comics down to maybe 1 or 2 short boxes, as opposed to the spare room I originally had when we started this store. So it's odd when you notice, I still buy comics to read, but they inevitably just end up at this store, and it pays for my hobby. So I've kind of adopted another hobby recently. I've kind of gotten into the retro game scene a lot more, and it's an interesting little hobby. For one thing, something I noticed, and I gotta commend the guys on it. For contrast, my dad's a car guy, and he's obviously a boomer, and he often laments that his quote-unquote hobby is dying. Well, I kind of pointed out to him, and he agreed once I saw it, that it's not your hobby that's dying, it's your corner of the hobby that's dying. People still love cars, people still are car guys, but whenever you go to a car show and you see the old cars, it's inevitably with an old guy. They've done a bad job, these older car guys, of passing on an appreciation for what they had to the younger generation of car guys. I was an exception to that. I had for a while a '62 Galaxy station wagon with a wood trim, beautiful car, black with red interior, just gorgeous. I finally got rid of it because it was just a lot of capital to have tied up in one thing, and with the ethanol that they're forcing on everybody, it got to a point where it's hard to get decent gas for it. I had to put these additives in it and shit. By the way, side note off the side note here, ethanol is bullshit. Ethanol is I can't believe we still tolerate that. The 10% ethanol they force into gasoline. It's bad for the cars. It's terrible for the cars. It's more expensive. It's not even good for the environment. First of all, there's the impact on the environment that farming has, but there's also the fact that it burns so poorly, you end up putting more pollution in the air as a result of it, because the mileage is so poor. Ethanol is a disaster. Ethanol is one of those examples of the shit that the government forces on us. No one benefits from it, except for the handful of farmers that benefit from it. I mean, Ethanol exists just because our presidential primaries start in Ohio. If they started in New Jersey, we'd all be subsidizing tanning salons. So, getting back to the original side note, having this Galaxy, I kind of got in touch with a Galaxy club that was in my area, and I brought down the median age of this group by 30 plus years just being in it. My dad was the second youngest guy in this group. It was pathetic. I'm like, why do you guys lack the ability to show young guys why a 62 Galaxy is cool? Because a 62 Ford Galaxy is fucking cool. All right? It's way before my time, but I still loved it. It was a fun car. I'm glad I had it. And that's something I've noticed that the retro game guys don't fail at. Being in this hobby, for lack of a better term, this scene, for the brief amount of time I've really gotten into it, I see a lot of young kids that like it. I see a lot of kids, 12, 13, 14, who have a bunch of NES games, a bunch of Super Nintendo games, even Sega Genesis, who are playing the old stuff. Now, there's a lot of factors for that. In part, I guess you could thank the Wii for that, for its virtual console library that started really reviving interest in the NES titles. But also, I think the retro game guys do a good job of communicating what was cool about these games, and they were fun games. I mean, you can go back and play Donkey Kong or Super Mario 3 or Sonic the Hedgehog or Super Mario World. Any of these cartridge, or not any, obviously there was a lot of shit, but any of these classic cartridge era titles, most of them still hold up. Most of them are more fun, certainly more imaginative than a lot of the garbage pumped out now. So I've gotten into the retro games a lot here recently. And I got into Kirby recently, which I never really was into as a kid. It was just, I knew of it, but, when you're a kid, your parents are only going to buy you so many. So, but I got into it recently, and it's fantastic. It's awesome. It's such a cool subculture. It's such a cool area of geek culture. Like, I've learned how to replace batteries in old Game Boy games, because obviously the batteries weren't meant to last these decades. Oh, sorry, had to get a drink there. It's fantastic. I'm a big fan of it. I like the creativity that's around it. I've mentioned this with in all my defense of geek culture towards some of my fellow more conservative or K-type / libertarian / whatever people, that geek culture is just this amazing creative thing. I love so much of the art that surrounds this retro game community. In the same flea market where I have my store, there's a young lady selling knit, yarn versions of characters that she makes, and it's just fantastic. Like you get a yarn Kirby or a yarn Yoshi, and she sells those bead sprite artworks that look like pixelated game characters that are becoming ever increasingly popular, which are just amazing pieces of art. I love that stuff. I love that exists. Such a wonderful creative community around all this. But one thing I should add before I get to the but. Another reason I get into the retro games, and I hate to sound like one of you crotchety old Galaxy Club members who, you damn kids, but modern games kind of suck. I don't know how else to put this, and it's not. Man, how should I even say this? They lack heart, they lack creativity, they're dumbed down in a lot of regards. Yeah, the graphics are better, but what good are great graphics if all you're looking at is all these shades of brown and gray? They're just dumb. It's funny, I was just having this conversation with somebody else. They're dumbed down. Some of the problems, I guess, are or gameplay versus story, that there isn't really a sync between gameplay and story. A good example is your typical sandbox game. Take a Grand Theft Auto, for example. Everyone wanted to bitch about Grand Theft Auto 5. I shouldn't say everyone. Well, a lot of people were bitching about Grand Theft Auto 5. Well, some people were bitching because they were social justice faggots and they were whining, "It's sexist, it makes my pussy hurt," and whatever. But a lot of other people who had actual legitimate complaints were complaining that all the protagonists in it were shitbags, and they didn't want to play as a shitbag. Well, here's the problem with not playing as a shitbag in Grand Theft Auto. It's a problem earlier Grand Theft Autos did when they tried to make the character kind of a reluctant villain / anti-hero. It's one of the first things that drew me to Saints Row, because it completely... Saints Row 2, I should say. I didn't play the first one. Because it completely threw that out the window and just acknowledged that your character is a shitbag. You can't have a cutscene where you're trying to portray this guy as some conflicted, anti-hero type guy. Because before that cutscene, I just killed 70 people for the fun of it. Including the EMTs who showed up to help. Because that's what you do in a sandbox game. That's what most people are going to do in a sandbox game. You're not going to be able to square away what you're allowed to do in a sandbox Grand Theft Auto with trying to make a sympathetic character. You're just not. I guess you could restrict what you can do in the sandbox mode. Make it almost like, a sandbox mode Spider-Man where you can't really do anything bad. But people would get pissed at that. So you end up with this conflict between gameplay and story. Some of these games, it feels like the guys writing the story were in a completely different room the whole time than the guys doing the gameplay, and they almost never talk to each other. The game versus the story just is always at odds. So that's another problem I have with a lot of modern games. Not all, but a lot. So, getting back to the dark side of this hobby I've just found myself getting into. And this pops up in hobbies all the time. Certainly in geek culture hobbies. The speculators. Oh, man. The speculators, you guys are bad and you should feel bad. Doing this comic book store, whatever, at this flea market that I do, I've run across a lot of these guys. And while I'm happy to take their money, because, hey, I'm only human, I hate them. I fucking hate them. I gotta bite my tongue every time they just ramble on. Like, when you're describing comic books, when I'm describing comic books at least, and I'm describing the era of this comic book, I would use a term like Silver Age, or Bronze Age, or what have you. Or I would tie it to a specific just period in that character or franchise, or a creative team. Like, this is George Perez era Avengers. This is Chris Claremont era X-Men. Or this is Clone Saga era Spider-Man. Or Satellite era Justice League. That sort of thing. But speculators love to call it a 10-center book, or a 12-center book, or a 35-center book. Because you're just looking at the covers, the fucking faggots. So they're looking at the original price tag. And every time I hear somebody, "You got any 10-center books?" I die a little inside. Because if I do have them, they're usually valuable books that I'd like an actual fan to have. But what can I do? I gotta make the money. There's no good way to get rid of the speculators. That's the sad part of it. That's the horrible thing about speculators, is how do you fight them? How do you fight them? I mean, and part of this is people will lump collectors in general in with the speculators, which I don't quite think is fair. I'm not going to say in all the time I collected comics that every single comic book I bought was to read. For example, I bought a comic book that was only like 5 or 6 pages, something like that. And it was the first few pages of Spider-Man Unlimited #1, which was the first issue in a story arc called Maximum Carnage. And it was a little promo comic that I think came with the Maximum Carnage video game. It was for the Maximum Carnage video game. Like, the cover of it looked like the cover of the video game. And it had these first few pages, and it said, "To be continued in the video game." Now, I bought this despite the fact that, story-wise, it's not a complete comic book. I already had Spider-Man Unlimited #1, indeed. But I still bought it because I like the Maximum Carnage story arc. And I know a lot of comic book nerd shit on it. I like Carnage. I like that story arc, so fucking sue me. I don't really like the game, but I have a lot of memories of it as a kid. Not quite so fond, but I have a lot of memories of it. So this was something I bought as a collector's item, but I bought it because I loved the things it was about. I didn't buy it because I thought, ooh, this is a good deal. It's only $5 and I think I could get 15 for it. Fuck that shit. That's bullshit. So I think the difference between the collector and the speculator is, are you collecting it because you want to have it, because you're building a collection? Because you love this thing? That's why you're collecting it? Or are you collecting it because you want to turn it around as a profit? You know, you want to be... It's an investment. Fuck people who buy comic books for an investment. Fuck people who buy any collectible as an investment. Those people are dicks, and they ruin it for everybody. So, I mean, speculators almost destroyed the comic book industry in the 90s. And I realized the publishers weren't blameless in this. They were obviously pandering to them. And obviously there was the boys that started Image who just completely dumbed down the whole atmosphere of the industry. But at the very least, speculators had the lion's share of the blame here for almost destroying comic books as a hobby, as a creative force. And again, even though I don't collect them now per se, I still love comic books because I love the superhero genre, because it's really one of the last places where masculine virtue is truly celebrated. So that alone is reason enough to sing its praises from the mountaintops. Well, sure enough, getting into this retro gaming scene, the speculators are in there in a major way. And they're fucking things up. They're fucking things up something fierce. Now, thankfully, obviously, it's a little bit different than the comic book thing, because video game companies aren't going to make new games based on what speculators want. But speculators are jacking up the prices unfairly on a lot of old games. The plus side is that most of the games that they're jacking up the prices on are, when it comes to being an actual game, dog shit. They're very rare NES games towards the end of the run of the system. Some of which are very good, like, your Mega Man 6, your DuckTales 2. But a lot of them are dog crap. Like, there's this Flintstones game that is really huge in the collector's thing. It's a really late NES game, I think. There's one game that's like this Nintendo Champion that you could only get through Nintendo Power, and it's barely a game. It's like little speedrun challenges of various levels from early NES games, and it's, as far as a game, it's not worth having. It's truly just a collector's item. Now again, I could understand why someone who truly loves Nintendo and is a Nintendo fan would want to own it because they love Nintendo as a piece of art, a collectible, what have you. But, you get the speculators who come in and ruin shit. And really, they can do that to any hobby. They can do it. It's such a fucking pathetic thing, too. If you're a speculator, you're fucking pathetic. Because first of all, very few of you really make any money. I mean, you have to be an absolute shitbag to be any good at it, to make money at it. But most of you are just fucking pathetic, and most of you are just using it as an excuse for just hoarding and just trying to fill the hole in your soul with stuff. And I realize you could argue that with any kind of collecting, but again, I think it's different if you're collecting because you genuinely love something. You love this type of art, comics, video games, what have you. And this is just a memento about the fact that you love it. Obviously, even that kind of collecting can get out of hand, but I know this one speculator who comes by my comic store, and he's so stupid with it. Like, he'll buy crap out of our dollar bin. And, I mean, we have really good books in our dollar bin, but they're just not in good shape. Because unless it's older than 70s, it's either near mint or it's a dollar book. Because people either want the best possible collector's copy they can find, or they want the cheapest reading copy. Middle of the road really doesn't matter. But he'll be like, this is a mid-grade Green Goblin #1 from 1995. It's going to be worth something someday. It's like, no, it's going to be worth $1 someday. Like it is now. And that dollar will be worth less than it is now. Because Ben Bernanke fun bucks don't hold their value, do they? He's so fucking stupid. And I can't imagine what his house must look like. Because it sounds like he collects everything. Like he fucking was talking about an old Tony the Tiger cereal box he had or some shit. Like it was fucking... It's just garbage. It's garbage by anyone's fucking measure. And I'm just like, what a sad fucking life you must have. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'll be at this comic store and I'll be talking about stories that I've read, and he'll be talking about fucking variant covers. Fuck you. You sad, sad man. So yeah, any kind of hobby, and the retro game hobby is no different. Speculators are the bane of it, and I wish I could tell you I knew a way to get rid of them, but it is what it is. Sometimes the locusts come and eat shit. There's nothing really you can do about it. Alright, switching gears to something a little bit more serious, a little bit more substantive, I guess. The Hobby Lobby court ruling came out recently, which... they couldn't force Hobby Lobby through Obamacare to pay for abortive birth control or whatever. And on the surface, I agree with this court ruling. Because, it is a violation of their religious freedom. But really only on the surface. And everybody has got this whole thing all wrong. I know that's the most arrogant thing in the world to say, but conservatives and liberals alike are just seeing the surface. They're not seeing the real points here. First of all, conservatives, y'all are fucking idiots when it comes to birth control. I get why you're anti-abortive. I get that. When it comes to abortion, I consider it kind of a gray area, so I go with my default of keeping the government out of it. Because I don't really know when it's a thinking, feeling person, and when it's just some cells. I really don't think right away at conception it is, but whatever. I can understand why someone has that moral argument. I can understand why someone's pro-life. I completely can respect that. But the anti-birth control shit, this position of yours, and this is a bit of a sidetrack, but I just want to say it, this position of yours against non-abortive birth control is fucking stupid. First of all, it's idiotic for you to be encouraging people to have kids they can't afford at all. Second of all, do you not realize that all you're doing is encouraging your enemies, encouraging degenerate R-type liberals? If indeed you could ban birth control, all you'd be doing is making sure that the degenerate R-type liberals outbreed you at a factor 10 to 1. And I don't care how fast you think you could churn out kids. Trust me, the crackhead single mom could do it faster. That's all you'd be doing. All you'd be doing is encouraging idiocracy. You should be handing out birth control to every fucking poor ghetto in the country if you had any goddamn sense. And I get your arguments against abortion, but the birth control thing is just fucking stupid on your part. And I realize not all conservatives do, but really, conservatives in general, even if they're not quote-unquote against birth control, the social conservatives always have at least a disdain for it. Very, very rarely to have anything. Which kind of, a lot of times, I suspect the pro-life movement abortion isn't really the point. It's just that they dislike birth control. Otherwise, you'd think they'd support condoms, because that, by nature, will prevent an abortion. But getting back, as much as I think that an anti-birth control position is stupid, although I can respect the anti-abortion thing, I think a Catholic business owner completely shouldn't have to pay for someone else's birth control. But you conservatives, when you focus on that point, you're missing the real point. The question isn't, why should I have to pay for your birth control? The question is, why should I have to pay for your health care? Alright? Maybe if you social conservatives had spent less fucking time dicking around fighting over condoms in Obamacare, maybe you could have actually hoped to have defeated Obamacare itself. But no, you were dicking around. See, this is why conservatives can't ever defeat the liberals. This is why you can't ever win. Alright? Because imagine Obamacare is this giant, monstrous Leviathan war machine, and you went up to it and you scratched its paint with this Hobby Lobby ruling, and you're celebrating. You're having a massive circle jerk over it. Like, yay, we showed them. What the hell is wrong with you? You're missing the point. Oh, I shouldn't have to pay for someone else's birth control because I don't believe in it. Well, first of all, why should you get a fucking special exception? I don't believe in socialized medicine at all, and where's my exception to Obamacare? Where's my exception to the whole damn thing? But second of all, that's not the point. And you know what? You gotta fight big government in general, because big government's gonna make you pay for shit you don't believe in. Alright? I don't particularly like the guy that much. I don't quote him that much, but there's an old Jon Stewart quote where he says, guess what, Catholics? Government makes you pay for shit you don't believe in sometimes. And when you reimburse me for the Iraq war, condoms are on me. And he's right in that regard. And of course, the thing he doesn't realize, being an idiot liberal, is that's an argument against big government in general. But that's why you gotta fight big government in general. You gotta get the government down to what it's supposed to do. And taking care of people's fucking health care is not what the government's supposed to do. So you're wasting your time with inconsequential shit. You conservatives always miss the point. And I'm going to go on a sidetrack because I always point it out because it's such a perfect example. Look at gay marriage for an example. Conservatives miss the point when they fight gay marriage. Oh, so gays will get married. Who fucking cares? Well, it'll destroy the institution of marriage. No, it won't. Because it's already fucking destroyed because of shit like no-fault divorce and other crap the feminists pushed on it. That's the stuff you should be fighting against. Gays are like 3% of the population at most, and most of them probably don't even want to get married. So how's this inconsequential little group of people destroying your marriage? They're not. You're using them as a scapegoat because you can't or won't face the real issue. The other thing you throw up, well, they'll have kids. They'll have kids, and it's not good for the kids. You're right, it's not good for the kids. I can't imagine it's good for a kid to be raised by two mothers or two fathers. But you know what else is really bad for kids? Oh, wait, and before we even say that, most gays aren't having kids anyways, okay? They don't fucking want kids, especially gay men. And the ones that are, already are, because they're doing it through artificial insemination or, like, adopting Chinese babies and that kind of shit. So unless you intend to stop that stuff, they're already doing it. Arguably all marriage does is provide at least some legal stability for this situation that already exists. But then you say like, oh, well, it's bad for the kids, it's bad for the kids. Yeah, it is. Well, so is fucking single moms. Why aren't you going after them? Because that's like fucking 40% out there right now. Some dumb hoe who gets knocked up because she can't figure out how a rubber works, back to that. You don't go after that. No, because churchianity wants to fucking cater to the female demographic so damn bad. It's easier to pick on this insignificant portion of the population. Now, am I saying gay marriage is a good thing? Not really. But it's also inconsequential, and it's not worth fighting about. You know what I say when gays are like, oh, we want to get married? I'm like, fucking fine, get married. Now can we audit the Fed? Something that actually matters. So I always use that as a perfect example of how conservatives miss the point. You'll focus on this emotional thing. You'll focus on this thing that just gets you all emotional and riled up, rather than looking at the real problem. Because that's hard, isn't it? It's difficult. And you're going to be really unpopular looking at, even within the church, looking at single moms as opposed to queers. You're going to be really unpopular looking at no-fault divorce, aren't you? Yeah, that's not going to fly all that well. So you don't want to touch that. So getting back to this Hobby Lobby thing, you don't want to really do the hard work of going after Obamacare and socialized medicine. Because guess what? If you go after Obamacare as a concept, then you kind of have to go after shit like Social Security and well, at least Medicare and Medicaid too. Because All Obamacare, at least originally intended, was to be an expansion of that for everybody. So you got to go after the concept of socialized medicine. Well, that shit's unpopular to do that, isn't it? Really, you kind of got to go after Social Security. You got to go after fucking welfare in general. You got to go after the concept of income redistribution as something the government is supposed to be doing if you're really going to tackle Obamacare at the heart. But that's fucking hard, isn't it? No. Let's just make sure we don't have to pay for rubbers. Or in this case, and yeah, in the Hobby Lobby case, it was abortive things that they didn't want to pay for. Let's just make sure we don't have to pay for the morning after pill. Now everything's fine. Don't worry, everybody. This war machine, we went up and we scratched its paint. We showed it. Now you fucking liberals. Don't think I forgot about you. You stupid fucking liberals. You know what? It's a miracle Obama has managed to get done anything he's gotten done. And it's by the grace of God that Obama is as incompetent as he was. God help us if he was actually competent. Alright, we could have gotten Darth Vader here. Instead, we got Dark Helmet from Spaceballs. Because this guy's a fucking buffoon. And this is a perfect example. The hissy fit he and his fucking... his ilk, but in the media in particular, are throwing over this shows... Obama should be sitting in his fucking chair with a brandy, laughing it up. Like, haha, touche, social conservatives. Enjoy your petty little victory, because it doesn't mean shit. But no, he had a fucking hissy fit. He had a fucking hissy fit that anybody dared to criticize him. What the hell are you liberals whining about? You're fucking winning. It's unreal. You are sore winners. And you know what? Getting back to liberals being sore winners. Let's go back to the gay marriage thing. Because again, picked on the conservatives on that issue. So let's pick on you fucking liberals. What the hell are you doing with these witch hunts? Are you fucking people out of your mind? Are you queers? You won. You won. What do you want to go on a fucking witch hunt for? You know, you always compare yourself to the civil rights movement. We're like Martin Luther King. We're like most of those guys weren't after revenge afterwards. Maybe some of the people that came after them were. Just look at South Africa. But at least the original guys were about reconciliation. At least many of them. You guys want fucking revenge. What are you pissed about still? You won. What do you care if the Firefox guy voted against it? You won. You fucking won. You're winning. What do you care? You know what it is? I'm going to get up on my religious high horse. I'll tell you exactly why you care. Why you need constant fucking approval. Because you know what? As much as I defend your right to be gay, as much as I don't care if you want to get married, as much as I would defend it at death, your right to be plowing your boyfriend in the privacy of your own home, your right to peacefully live out your life as you see fit, it's fucking wrong. Now, it's not nearly as much of a big deal as the evangelicals who are ridiculously obsessed with sex want to make it out to be. You know, I mean, there's one time in the Bible Christ was angered to the point of physical violence. It wasn't in the bordello. It wasn't in the gay cult, the Apollo temples or anything like that. It was in the money changers in the temple. So if he were walking the earth today physically, he'd probably be more mad at the likes of Joel Osteen than the likes of Larry Flint. But it's still wrong. You know in your heart of hearts that you're fucking broken in this way, and that in just ridiculously complicated ways you're trying to fix your broken self with these same-sex relationships. You know it ain't working. You know it's not filling your void. You know it's not what you were made for. You know it. You know it. And that's why you need constant fucking reassurance. Because you're not trying to convince everybody else, you're trying to convince yourself, aren't you? Aren't you? Because if I'm wrong, and you guys are perfectly proud and happy of what you are, and why the fuck do you need my approval? I'll give you my tolerance. I'll give you my tolerance all day long, alright? I'm all for tolerance. That means I accept your ability to live your life as you see fit. I respect your rights. It doesn't mean I have to be like, well, it's good that you get to fuck that. I'm not giving you my acceptance. I'll give you my tolerance. If you want my acceptance, I have to beg the question, why? Why the hell do you need it? Unless I'm right, and you know you're wrong. Because I can't even begin to imagine why else you'd be such a sore winner on this. Because you know what? You guys want to get fucking gay married? Fine. I don't give a shit. I understand why you want to. There's certain legal privileges that come with that. So fine. I don't give a shit. Go ahead. Go ahead, get your little fucking piece of paper from the government. No skin off my dick. Alright? But you better knock it off with these witch hunts, because all you're going to do is turn people against you. You know, you're winning now, but you're not going to be if you keep that shit up. So yeah, this Hobby Lobby shit, and I was using gay marriage as an example, but getting back to the Hobby Lobby. You got fucking Obamacare, isn't that what you wanted? What are you so pissed off, liberals, that they knocked this little tiny piece off of it for? What the hell does that matter? Because guess what? Big government by nature is incrementalism anyways, so you're probably going to get that piece back. You know, the Leviathan regenerates. That part's going to grow back. Don't worry. What are you so upset about? You fucking liberals are sore winners. It's unreal. And you fucking conservatives. You fucking moronic mainstream conservatives. The liberals are winning because you're idiots. Because you don't know how to fight them. You don't know how to go after the real issues. You just don't know how to fight them. And that's why they win. That's why they're winning against you. Alright, now, I try to end these podcasts on a lighter note, on a positive note. So let's violently shift the tone over to a lighter note. Let's talk for a minute about Sonic the Hedgehog. Because I was just asked recently, about a week or so ago, by Arini, no less. Why do people like Sonic the Hedgehog? Or he really was saying, why do people still like Sonic the Hedgehog? And I'm going to answer as a guy who considers himself a Sonic the Hedgehog fan. When I say I'm a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, there's two things I like. I like the original cartridge era games. Sonic 1, 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Love them. And I like the Sat AM cartoon / comic book kind of continuity featuring like Princess Sally and whatnot. I think that's a remarkably fleshed out world. The Sonic comic is probably the best all ages comic of my lifetime to be published, and it's going like 250 issues strong. And it's just fantastic, this wonderfully fleshed out world. That being said, take those things out of the mix, and Sonic is crap. Modern Sonic games are at best okay. I played Shadow the Hedgehog for a while on the PS2. Back when it was still somewhat new. It was okay. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says. But it was okay. Sonic Heroes was okay. Sonic Generations was alright. It was alright. Modern Sonic games got a lot of problems for a couple reasons. Number one, Sonic doesn't work well in 3D at all. 3D high-speed platforming is a nightmare. Because either I feel like I'm completely... The game is controlling me half the time, or I'm completely out of control. I'm going to fly off a ledge. It's rough. I just got Sonic Lost Worlds for the Wii U. Played it a little bit tonight. Didn't like it at all. The gameplay with these kind of planetoid whatnots or whatever, in style, it's very reminiscent of Super Mario Galaxy, particularly Super Mario Galaxy 2. But I don't like it. It's okay at best. I mean, so far it's my least favorite Wii U game that I played. Even less, I like it even less than the Luigi game that I already sold. I didn't even get halfway through it. I was like, eh. I'm probably gonna get rid of Sonic Lost World. It's not very good. The stories are weak at best. Sonic 06 is a keen example of when these Sega writers try to do a really in-depth, nuanced, layered story, they fail miserably. If they had any brains, they'd put the guys from Archie in charge of it. So I love Sonic because of of the Princess Sally kind of world, and I love Sonic because of the original games. And those two things are literally enough to keep Sonic something I love, even if the new games are crap. Hey, they're still making the comics. The comics are better than any of the games. So that's why I love Sonic. Good old Sonic the Hedgehog. Ending kind of on a lighter note here. And I guess the other thing I'd say is I don't recommend Sonic Lost World. I don't like it at all. I guess I could, if you like modern Sonic games, maybe you'd like it. I mean, there's some interesting gameplay aspects to it so far, but it's just so weak. It's just I've been playing Super Mario 3D World, which is fantastic. I mentioned this in my last podcast. It's great. I love the fact that you can play as Mario, Luigi, Toad, and Peach, like you could in the old Mario 2, the American version. And I find I'm playing as Peach a lot more than anything else. Partly because of the novelty, because you can't usually play as her. And partly because she has that kind of floaty power with her dress. Like from the American Mario 2. So I think I've played her the vast majority of the time. And yeah, you know what? I'm secure enough in my manhood. I can play as a girl. You know, fuck you, Anita Sarkeesian. You think I can't? I'm fine with it. Though I'm sure somehow this game is also sexist. Fucking social justice warriors. Alright, so that's my podcast this week. Thanks as always for listening. Bechtloff out.